Thank you for joining us on how to write the right book to find new clients now. I have 7 insights to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Renaissance. I wish you could have been there with me in May of 2022. I was in Chicago at the Build a Better Agency Summit. So this was 230 advertising and digital marketing agency owners were gathered there. And Drew McClellan from the Agency Management Institute directed them and talked about the pandemic, said we're all captains of the ship that's our business, and our job was just to survive. Now in 2022, something new is happening. And he told the story of other great disruptions that have happened in the history of the world, the bubonic plague, World War II. Said each of these was followed by a renaissance. In the Middle Ages, the works of Da Vinci and Michelangelo and great advances. After World War II, a tremendous period of innovation after World War II. And he said, we're at a crossroads. All of us are at a crossroads right now. We have the chance for a great boon or a great bust. Because after a horrible event like we've been through, there's innovation, and you have the opportunity to be one of the innovators and take the lead, or you can have the opportunity to, play the cards that you have right now and lose. You'll be left behind. You'll be run over by the innovators. He said, that's really the critical point we're at right now. I've written about it in Forbes.com. I wanted to gather everyone here today to take this message to you. It's welcome to the Renaissance. Innovate or die. We need to innovate our businesses right now. So my premise for today's call, and this is going to be interactive. We'll have plenty of Q&A opportunities with Devin and I. The opportunity on the call today is to consider, what are you going to do? My premise is every ABC, every agency owner, every business coach, every strategic and marketing consultant can write the right book to find new clients now. And you need to know that the world has changed. My underlying message today that I want you to take away is, it's time for your next book now. If it's your first book, it's your first book. If you wrote a book before the pandemic, that doesn't cut it anymore. You have to address the new world that we're in. And I'm going to talk about the elements that need to be in that book. So I'm sounding an alarm. This is the alarm bell. When I wrote one of my books, Closing America's Job Gap, Ken Blanchard wrote the foreword, and he said I was sounding an alarm in that book and we need to pay attention. He talked about his good buddy, Gary Ridge, who was the CEO of WD-40. And Gary was in a hotel in England and the fire alarm went off. I don't know if you've ever been in a hotel in the middle of the night and the fire alarm goes off. And I've had to be in my pajamas and whatever shoes I could throw on and be outside a hotel at 3 a.m. where the fire department arrived. Well, Gary in this hotel in England thought, well, it's a false alarm. These things go off. He didn't heed the alarm. He didn't heed the alarm until the manager of the hotel was banging on his door saying, you've got to get out now. So I'm banging on the door, really telling you that this is not just gain. I want you to avoid some pain here, the pain of not adapting to this new situation. I'm going to share several insights today. Insight number 1 is we've got that opportunity for boon or bust. Insight number 2 is thought leaders are not one and done. If you've done a book, that's great. If you haven't done your first book, time to get started. Thought leaders are not one book and done. They can't say everything they need to say in one book. I hope you know Lisa Apolinsky. If you don't know Lisa yet, she's an author with Indie Books. She came to me 4 years ago. She had an agency called Three Dog Right, digital marketing agency. She wanted to have Fortune 500 clients, and she didn't have any. And I said, well, Lisa, you can do that. It's not going to be easy. You need to be a thought leader. You need to write several books. You need to speak about these books. You need to interview people about these books. Lisa did it. She's written 3 books in the last 4 years. And she was hoping that she could even double her revenues. Well, she didn't do that. She tripled her revenues. She now has Fortune 500 clients. She has one of the top 5 banks. She has one of the top 5 financial houses. She has a Japanese billion-dollar technology company. They're all her clients. In fact, she's limiting her clients now because she wants it to be as like you're in a special exclusive club when you have Three Dog Right as your digital marketing agency. So she followed that insight. Now, we're going to have questions here. We're going to have interaction. There'll be time for it. Devin is going to monitor the chat right now. Devin DeVries, our VP of Production at Indie Books, she's joining me, and she'll also be speaking today. All of this is to inspire you to be thinking about that next book now. Even, I know some of you, your next book is about to come out. That's great. And now you need to start talking about the next book you're researching. I just spoke with one of my authors today, Ed Tate. He says, I've got to share something with you. I've been talking to people about, oh, I want to interview you for my book that's coming out. Oh, when is it coming out? Next year. He's asking him questions. And he said, I am going to land $200,000 worth of business as a result of telling people and interviewing them that I'm writing this next book. So, insight number 2, thought leaders are not one and done. Now, before I knew this, years ago, I would publish a book, and then 10 years later, I'd publish another book, and that was too long apart. I found out the more condensed I was in getting books out, not writing some huge tome of something that's this thick. You don't want to do that. You want to write digestible books under 20,000 words if you can, because that's what people want to read. The insight that I've come up with recently is people now want your post-pandemic insights. Now, I know we're not through the pandemic. I know I have to go get another booster shot. I had COVID in August and was on Paxlovid, and oh, that stuff tastes horrible. It's metallic. But one of my authors who also went through that, they said, I have friends who've been through chemo and radiation treatment. I can have a bitter metallic taste in my mouth for 5 days. I can get through this. We're not through the pandemic, but a lot's happened in 3 years. We need to be addressing the new realities. What are your insights for what's going on now? I'm coming out with 3 new books in the next 6 months that all have to deal with this post-pandemic world and marketing. I'm doing marketing with a book for agency owners. With David Goldman and Mark LeBlanc, I'm doing bringing in the business. It's all about enrolling, how we enroll as professionals, consultants, clients, especially now. We're not using these old cheesy things or these things we were talking about 5 years ago. Also, Trusted Advisor Confidential, what it means to be a trusted advisor today and put a system. That's with Craig Lauder. So that's what I'm working on. I want to hear now, we're going to open it up. It's a rapid round. Just tell me if you've got a book in the works. You can type it in the chat and Devin can report it, or you can raise your hand and just tell us what book you're working on. It might be helpful if you unmute everybody. I might call on some people. Steve Swavely, what book are you working on?
Well, the working title is Optimal Team Performance, and it's all about the power of neuropsychology to supercharge leadership.
And Steve, what we're going to have to visit on that is how is the post-pandemic world impacted this? I think we need to talk about that in chapter 1 of your book to show that it's relevant. We don't want to date things with dates like 2021, 2022, recent studies, anything like that. We want our books to be evergreen, but we need to talk about it. Patrick McGowan, what's your book about?
My current book is actually called Across the Lens: How Your Zoom Presence Can Make or Break Your Business. That was definitely a response to the pandemic. Post-pandemic, my new book is going to be called Beyond the Lens.
The lens and our relationship with it is so important today. I'm doing a column this month for Forbes.com. It says live events are increasing by 255%, according to a study. And virtual events are remaining the same number of them. So they're either adding hybrid. So the total is more events are happening. We're not just going back to live events. So your book is important. I saw a hand. Is it pronounced Runa? You can unmute and share. I might be able to unmute you, but
yeah, sorry for the delay here. No, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Maybe you were applauding. Parisa, I see Parisa. Parisa, tell them about your new book.
Yeah, it's coming out soon, called Exposing the E-Learning Mystery: Secrets to Digitizing Your Business.
Yeah, and I know that is in publication right now. E-learning is something big and different in the last 3 years and what it could do. I heard you speak on that in Minneapolis, and when you said it's not about creating an e-business, it's about growing your business with e-learning. I didn't say it as well as you said it, but that was significant. I see Alex. Alex, what's your book? There you go, Alex.
Yeah, The 3 No's of Marketing. The fundamentals of marketing that are applicable whether you are a small, mid-sized business or a large company, but how to create predictable and stable growth by putting your customers first.
And that's KNOWS, the things that you know about marketing, the things you have to know. A lot of great questions. I guess you and I should look there. It's is there some type of post-pandemic overlay or insight that you could add to that? Dave Sparkman, tell us about your book on culture.
Yeah, it's called Spark Your Culture, Lessons Learned to Ignite and Fuel Lasting Results. And as you've coached me, Henry, one of those chapters will include some post-pandemic information when so much of culture was thought to be in person with the interactions and relationships. Now, how do you do that with digital relationships across the globe?
Thanks. Now, I know Tony and Barbara are working on a book together. Barbara, I might put you on the spot. What's the book about?
Let's see.
Oh, there you go, Barbara.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so Tony and I are in the process of right after our first sloppy copy, and we are writing on a guide for parents to help them find the best therapist for their teen to 20-year-old teens to 20-year-olds.
The topic I want us to look at there is we've talked about the mental health issues, depression, anxiety for young people, those 13 to 30-year-olds during the last 3 years. I didn't fully appreciate that until I had deep conversations with you all on what's going on out there. And I talked to another person I interviewed for Forbes.com, and he works with junior high school students, and he's he's Roman Gabriel the third. His father was a quarterback in the NFL, and he was a quarterback, and now he has a youth foundation. And he says, you don't know how hard this impacted this generation of kids. So thanks. Well, there's more we could do, and would want to encourage everybody to think about that book that's coming out, and then your next book to do that. So that's really the insight there. Well, let's go to some more insights. Insight number 4 that I'm saying is, for it to be the right book, for you to write the right book that's going to build your credibility, give you more impact, give you more influence, and attract new clients, help you find new clients. That book needs to offer help, not hype. Help, not hype. It has to have valuable information. A book that I read in the last year that impacted me greatly was The Business of Expertise by David C. Baker. Now, I have followed David C. Baker for over 20 years. I've written about him extensively. He is an expert on how to be an expert. One of the takeaways from this book was, you need to connect the dots for the people you serve. And you need to take in all this information, there's plenty of data, analyze it, and come up with at least 20 insights. 20 insights that you could write a white paper about, that you could teach a course on, and offer that information. As they say, we're drowning in data. We're dying of thirst for analysis. So that's your job, the analysis, to connect the dots. And there's some other great things in his book, and it's about the idea of super niching, going for a super niche. If you think you're in a niche, niche down even more. And he offers some excellent information about, if you have the right niche, you could identify 2,000 to 10,000 prospects. You could actually buy a list of them. And you are intimately aware of their problems. For me, one of the niche that we're going for are advertising agencies. And I've identified 8,000 small to mid-sized agencies in the United States. I have data on the #1 pain point for 3 out of 5 of them is how to find new clients. The #2 pain point for 50% of them is how to find time to find new clients. So this is what's on their mind. That's the problem that I'm after to solve. What is it for you? Now, open it up. Are there any questions? Devin, do we have any questions that have come up that we can answer in chat?
No questions yet.
So Dana or David, does this bring a question to mind for you?
I'll ask one, Henry. So in the area of getting even narrower in your niche, I've been avoiding that for, I don't know, 30 years. So and I've got it narrowed down to 2, attorneys and financial advisors. And the way I'm doing it is saying estate planning, the estate planning world. So that encompasses a certain kind of attorney and a certain kind of financial advisor. Do I need to get even more narrower than that?
So the question is, he's got attorneys and financial advisors, estate planning connects them. Does he need to get narrower than that? My answer is yes. A future book will probably be bringing in the business for attorneys, and a subsequent book bringing in the business for financial advisors. And you have much more power when you're not diluted. You have much more power when all the examples in the financial advisor book are financial advisors. We call that the bolt-on strategy. If you can add the words for blank on a target audience, you can make your book and your subsequent books much more powerful. With that, I'm going to move on. If you have a question, put them in the chat. Happy to get to them. Insight number 5. We're finding this so important. Insight number 5, clear, not clever. Clear, not clever. And this comes from another thought leader I greatly admire, Stephen Wozner. Stephen is the co-author of Sell with Authority. He is a podcaster. His company is Predictive ROI. And we were comparing notes. We both identified something. He named it the Trojan horse strategy. I talk about it where you've got this niche, go after 25 people who you could identify who would be great prospects. In our world, we call these sector 1 strangers, but because you are out there and so specific, you can interview them on your podcast. You can interview them for your next book. It was the Ed Tate I was talking about. He's actually didn't know this strategy or its name, and he was following it. We chronicled it. What I wanted to share was research that Stephen freely shares about messaging. And the message we sent out for this event was different than other ones we've sent out before, in that it was just clear. It was just clear what we were going to talk about. And we typically get 5 to 10 people to agree to be on a Zoominar. We had to cut this off at 50 signups. We had to cut it off. And one of the things we attributed to is, 1, a clear message, and then repeating it for 4 weeks. And we did it on LinkedIn, we did it on emails, we did it in our tips newsletter we sent out, just a clear message about what we're doing. Stephen thinks the world we're in right now is so complicated and so busy, if you can't say it in 4 or 5 sentences, people don't even want to read it. And we're seeing evidence of that. I'm also seeing evidence in that in our titling, in our event titles. It's not about being punny. It's not about being clever. We're seeing this in our titling for Forbes.com articles. It's just how clear can we be what it's about? And that has power. So this next book you're doing, be clear. Be clear who it's for, what the problem is, and really focus on a niche. Insight number 6, and I'd like to bring Devin on for this, and Devin will present this and what we're finding. Overall, I say the insight is regular, not random. Regular, not random. So the book is part of a regular, not random outreach strategy. So with that, Devin, if you could take the mic.
Thanks, Henry. So with regular, not random, we wanted to talk about your marketing strategies and being consistent and regular in those activities. There's a lot we can do with marketing, and sometimes when we get busy, we have a tendency to just kind of throw different things out there, and it's very unorganized. There's not quite a plan to it. But if we can be consistent, that's when we'll really see results from the activity. There's a lot of different strategies out there, so I'll just tell you kind of ours to give you an example of what this could look like. So for Indie Books International and Henry as the face of our company, what we do is we have 8 webinars every year. We do a weekly video podcast, a weekly tips email to our newsletter list, and then Henry, as the writer, posts 5 articles to Forbes.com every month. So we have weekly and monthly and yearly activities. And those are our top 4 strategies. Now we do try different things and have, social media and other things going, but those ones are locked in and always happen. And we can track prospects and clients directly to those activities. So what is the mix for you? What are the, 2 to 4 things that you can do consistently with quality in your marketing endeavors? And there is magic in the mix. Mark LeBlanc says that, because if we put all of our eggs in one basket, if something goes wrong or it doesn't work, then we're stuck. So spreading it out a little bit helps you reach more of your audience. Our number 1 recommendation of marketing strategy you can do, though, is the virtual small scale seminar. This is something that we pivoted to from live events to virtual at the beginning of the pandemic. And now 2.5 years in, we have some learnings and tips to share on what we've seen work. So the first one is to make a plan and really plan out several months in advance. Get dates on the schedule, because then you can work backwards on how you're going to get people into those events. And what we have found is that the longer the lead time, the better. I think when we started virtual, we had this idea that, there's no travel to it and you just jump on your computer. So it was a little more short notice would be fine. And maybe in the early days of the pandemic, when everything was so crazy and unsettled, it worked. But now people are back to a regular schedule. So giving them more notice, we find, is going to fill the events better. When we kept it too close to the event, we weren't getting the attendance we hoped for. So now we're starting 6 weeks out from our events with these regular emails, and we're sending emails and doing social media posts weekly up to the event. So again, that's why having the kind of 6 to 12 month plan in place on when these events will help you kind of work backwards on getting your emails set up and all of that. The second piece, and this just ties into what Henry was just talking about with Insight 5, is the clearer you can be in the message, the better. Short and sweet. What is this topic? What is the problem it's solving for them? When and where is what they need. They need bullets. We don't need to send super long emails or try to have really clever verbiage. Let's make it easy on them and make it clear what they're going to get out of the program. Now, I do have one caution to give before the next tip, and that is about Zoom fatigue. I know it's a thing and people are feeling it, but it's also become a thing to kind of badmouth Zoom and videos and kind of complain about it. And that's what I want to caution to not really do. Even if you feel it inside, that's fine. We all have those days, but I wouldn't do it in front of prospects and clients, because the world is changing and we're going that way. Companies have adopted this hybrid work approach. So video is very much a part of our lives now. And if we're so down on it, it makes you seem a little out of touch. Dare I say, even a little old, if you're not willing to embrace the technology. But what I would want you to do is, if you are feeling that way or you feel that way about webinars, channel that into how you do yours and be creative. Because the next tip is to kind of shake it up. What would get you excited about going to a webinar? What can you do to engage and interact differently with your prospects? Maybe it's the timing. Maybe try a 30-minute or even a 15-minute webinar. Maybe that's what would speak to somebody, and it still gets you in front of them and a chance to connect. And the last tip is that at the end of any of these things, we want to make sure that there's some next step for them to interact and follow up with you. And we really recommend that you have a strategy call offer. So a chance for a one-on-one conversation with you. It's a no cost, no selling opportunity for them to chat with you. So whatever your area of expertise is, I'll demo ours. And this is an offer that anybody on the call is welcome to as well, but you can see how it works. So if you would be open to discussing your next book and how we can position it to attract clients, we'd be happy to have a book chat with you. It's a 30-minute, no selling call, information only. We're happy to answer any questions. If you have some specific questions, maybe on the writing and editing side, you can speak with Henry, or publishing and promotion. I'm happy to speak with you. And it's as simple as that. So I would encourage you to start thinking about, what topics can you use in a virtual webinar, and what strategy call offers you can start making to your clients. And we wish you the best of luck with your marketing. We'll turn it back to Henry.
Thanks, Devin. This is, the Zoom wave. I wanted to open it up to questions and answers now. So you can ask a question of Devin or me. This has probably triggered something. And I think I'll go to Dana first. Maybe we could put this on gallery view. Thanks. Dana, your question.
Right. So what I heard was, we want to have a regular schedule, plan out 6 months. So I would think, like a rolling 6 months thing. When you reach out to your clients or your prospects, is it good to maybe say, oh, we're doing a webinar on this subject here, and also another one here? I mean, how many options do you give them to get your great content and fabulous information?
Great question. So the question is, how many options do you give them? Typically right now, we're giving one option and then moving to the next option. In my tips newsletter, I'm spreading it out in some of the PSs that I do to give people different options or things coming up. Devin mentioned we do 8 webinars. I do 5 classes a year, 3-hour classes on a book blueprint, how to write the right book. So we talk about some of those too. So there's other things we offer. Also, now we've been doing the podcast. We've got a year and a half of some great videos, and I'm highlighting some of those. I'm also highlighting some podcasts that I've been on other people's podcasts, and sending them a free link to that. So with that, I guess there are some options. When we used to do direct mail, I would always do 2 options in the direct mail, the next 2 events coming up, because we were trying to catch people if they were too busy on this one, that there'd be another one down the road that they could go to. So great question, thanks. Another question out there?
Yeah, Henry, this is Steve. I've got a question. I don't know if this is a question for you or Devin, or maybe both. I noticed in Devin's description of what your marketing things consist of, you had the newsletter, you had the podcast, you had the articles you're doing for Forbes. I didn't hear blogs. Are blogs still a viable marketing tool?
So the question is, are blogs still a viable marketing tool? Very much. We're using LinkedIn as our blog platform now. And with LinkedIn, it has to be original content. So it just can't be something repurposed from another place. Like I can't just repost my Forbes.com articles. In some way, Forbes is our super blog site, if you will. But we're adding a very targeted blog onto LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is the world's biggest B2B database. So tap into the advantages of that rather than starting your own, just a blog site isolated, or attach a blog site to your website. This is what we're recommending right now.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thanks.
But somebody, Devin gave that list of things we're doing, and somebody contacted me and said, "Is this Henry DeVries?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Henry DeVries, the guy who does the Forbes columns and the newsletter and he goes, how do you have time to do any client work?" And I said, "Oh, well, that's my clone. My clone does the client work. I'm doing all this." So it sounds like a lot. It's about a rhythm, just getting into a rhythm. I wouldn't advise a column unless you love writing. And I've been a professional journalist for, it's 50 years, I started when I was 15. And so I always have had a side gig writing professionally. So that's me. And I didn't start at Forbes.com. I worked my way up from the San Diego Daily Transcript and then CBS Money Watch and Inc.com all the way to Forbes and then Forbes Volunteer. Devin, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just going to say we often batch things too, which helps with the timing. So we'll do, Henry will write, 5 to 10 tips, and then we as the staff load it into our constant contact mailing system, and we can schedule them in advance. So sometimes it's easier to just set aside an hour or two to, prepare some of those things and get them scheduled, than each week being like, oh, shoot, it's Tuesday, we need to send the tip. So that's one recommendation too, for to help with the consistency. And that would apply for blogs, podcasts, social media posts, all those kind of things you can kind of prep ahead of time.
I skipped over in that opening, Parisa, whose book is Modern Badass Tales from the Leadership Front. Now, she's a blogger. Also, this book is new content. She can chop that up into articles and excerpts and blogs. So there's a lot of recycling you can do. As advertising agency great and author of Ogilvy on Advertising, David Ogilvy, said, "We market not to a standing army, but to a passing parade." So they don't know everything we've written. They just catch snippets of it. And if they hear it a year later, it's probably new to them again, because a lot's happened to them in their lives. So don't get worried or don't overthink that I'm saying some of the same truths over and over again, some of the same insights. That's natural and it works. I can take one more question before we move on this. If anybody had a question. Yes, Laura.
This is just a quick one, since I have lots of content. What I heard you say is to keep the book really under 200 pages.
Is that a question?
That's the question.
Yes.
Is that what I heard you say?
That is correct. If you look at people like Ken Blanchard, who has sold more business books than anyone else alive today, he keeps his books under 200 pages.
Okay.
Matter of fact, he's cheating a little on the font size on his books now. And I think that's because his target audience, I am one of them, has a hard time reading. I have to read some books like this right now if I get a physical book. That's one of the reasons I like Kindle. I can just up the font size on the Kindle book. It's just reality. But as far as that length, Laura, it's the bite-sized chunks that people are willing to read.
Got it.
One of the a little dirty little secret about being an author, people will come up to you, Laura, and say, "I have your book." And that's code for, "I haven't read your book. It's in a stack in my office or on my nightstand, and I hope to get to it one day." And a lot of the reason is if it's too big of a chunk, And you know, I've written, this book is 55,000 words. Today, I'd say that's 2 books. I had a Harvard Business School professor come to me with his manuscript, and I read it and I said, this is great. It's 2 books. Which one do you want to publish first? We actually cut that in half, published it. He decided not to publish the second one. That first book was getting him all the speaking engagements and trainings that he wanted. So that's what you need to weigh on length. Okay, with that, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to go to insight number 7 in all this. And it's not like you write the book and you're discovered. If you're hearing this, it's a process. This is a process of you're writing the book for credibility and you're chopping it up in all different ways to speak about it and write about it so you can attract people. You offer them the strategy call. And when the strategy call happens, it's not a selling zone. Think of it more as similar to a doctor-patient in that the doctor asks you questions to give you a diagnosis. And in the book that David Goldman and Mark LeBlanc and I are working at, and it's the first time we've come out with this content, it's really about enrolling. It's a series of conversations that happen. The first phase is the attraction phase conversations, and that's a lot what we're talking about. The book then covers when somebody has that call with you, that discovery call, we call it a book chat here, other people call it a coffee talk, a strategy call. There needs to be questions you ask people. I believe you need to ask them about their goals. You need to ask them about what assets they have or help them uncover assets to get this done. What are their roadblocks? And then helping them get clarity around how to get from where they are to where they want to go. That's more like the prescription part of it. Overall, I'm asking, have you ever failed to enroll somebody? There was somebody who should have been your client, but they didn't become your client. This happened to a mentor of mine. Let's call him Mel. Mel's a business coach. Mel attends a party in San Francisco and sees a prospect that he talked to 7 years previous, but failed to enroll her to be a client, somebody he would coach to grow her business. And she had a conversation with him and said, you know, that was a mistake on my part. Things in the last 7 years have not gone well. But when Mel analyzed it, he said, really, who was at fault here? Was it her or was it him for failing to know how to properly enroll? I just talked to someone today that they enroll 80% of the people they have conversations with. They've really worked on this and this whole philosophy. Now, not everybody's a fit. That's why it's not 100%, but 80 is a lot better than most of us do. So what are those steps? I always say, if an arrow doesn't hit the target, it's not the target's fault. If we don't enroll a prospect who we could help. I bring this up because I don't know all of you. I know some of you, and I know something that you do noble work. You help people. You didn't get into this world to make lots of money, to be famous. You got in it to have credibility, to have impact, to have influence, to really help people. You have that servant's heart that Ken Blanchard talks about in his servant leadership books. And that is a noble thing. I just want you to be able to do more of the good work that you are called and compelled to do. So we're going to leave you with a challenge today. And the challenge is you need to be part of the innovation renaissance. You need to take back some time, I don't know, go for a long walk. Sometimes I go to a hotel and just spend 2 days with a retreat with just me. Really think how can you be part of this change that's happening now? And how can you help the people that you serve with the change? How can you write, publish, and promote your next book that's going to help you find these right fit clients? And when you find the right fit clients, you're going to do that noble work to help them. So we started with the premise, and I hope we've convinced you today that you can have a new book to find new clients now. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you again. We have another event on December 8th. And on December 8th, we're going to do it in 30 minutes. We want to demo how to do it in 30 minutes because we believe that is something that could be a game changer. We'll test it. You'll see. Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time for an hour now, but I've got time for 30 minutes or even under 30 minutes. And we've got this from an author who's a client who's got a nationwide book coming out, and he's doing 30-minute webinars. So we're interested in testing that out. Thanks for being with us today, and look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Bye, everybody.